What if you could change your life? What if sorrow could become joy and the darkness the light? What if you could heal not only yourself, but those around you? Well, you can. It's called alchemy. And these are the Alchemy Sisters. Join quantum karmic healer Jennie McDaniel and intuitive empowerment coach Mandee Elam for a magical journey into esoteric spiritual discussions. Brought to you by Heart Over Ego Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Alchemy Sisters. You are here with Mandee and Jennie. Hey Jennie, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited that it's the Lionsgate portal and we're stepping into more master manifesting, all the things that all of our hearts are calling in. So that's always exciting. And I'm also just really excited for our chat tonight. What about you?
Just enjoying this beautiful, I guess we're in late summer day here just north of Albuquerque. I love the dryness, the heat of the sun. It feels so good. It's just really a great day. I've just been sucking up all the energy and really looking forward to our show tonight because it lines up with one of my newer projects, Horror Magic. It's an incredible story that we're going to be presenting to you, and our friend Maegan is going to be displaying that, and I'm real excited to bring her on. I've been telling everybody about it all day.
Awesome. So our friend Maegan Bell is a survivor of sex trafficking turned activist. She also has founded a new project, which we'll let her tell you all about, called Angel Warrior, intended to help out her community, youth, teens, and women in her area. So welcome, Maegan. How are you?
Thank you guys for having me. I'm super pumped. I'm enjoying this summer day. I'm kind of craving fall, but summer, I'm still enjoying the summer.
You know, I saw a few leaves drop today, and I'm like, oh, it's happening. I'm feeling that end of summer kind of coming in, and the next month or two, it'll start to really shift.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So, Maegan,
you guys are over on the east there. You guys are both over in the east, so you guys might be getting a little of that nip of fall a little bit before I am here in the southwest, sounds like.
Maegan, you're way up north, so you probably are.
Yeah, I'm up in Maine, central Maine. So, I mean, it's really nice. I can't complain. It's 80 today. But at night it does get colder.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you. Obviously, you know, everyone is starting to, well, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people are starting to become aware of sex trafficking and what that looks like and how it's not everything they maybe thought it was and how it's a lot more common. So we're really excited to hear from you tonight. Would you share with our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Maegan Bell. I'm from Maine, born and raised. I've been, all over the globe as far as like LA, London, whatnot. And I landed in New York City, and that's where my sex trafficking story began. But honestly, I work with Mandee and Jennie, both as a life coach and healers for my own personal life. So this is really important and special to me personally to be on your show. And it's really rewarding, and I definitely feel honored. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
We're proud of you, and we're honored to hold space with you, too. And thank you for sharing with us and your listeners, a little bit about your journey.
Yeah. So as far as sex trafficking, and that word can mean, many different things to many different people. To me, obviously, it hits home. It's very personal because I'm a survivor of sex trafficking. A lot of my colleagues, my friends or whatnot have been posting it. So it's obviously an on-trend topic. And I'm like, finally, people they're hearing me. They believe me. It's like, it's here. The time is now to share my story. If I don't do it, someone else will. So it's time, to give myself the platform to speak and share and just help my community out and whatnot. So it's been 10 years since I was personally trafficked. My story is a lot different than most because mine was a boyfriend, which is what we call a Romeo pimp. There's lots of different kinds of pimps out there, or traffickers, as you may call it. I say a little bit different lingo when I talk about it because I was in the life. So when I say pimp, I really mean like trafficker. So when I met my trafficker, I was in a nightclub, and I was in fashion school in New York around like 22 years old. And I was dancing the night away, and this beautiful like Costa Rican man approached me, and I thought he was amazing, and he was a rapper, and I really fell for him hard. It starts off as like the grooming process, as most trafficking stories start out with. Grooming can mean, different things like showering you with gifts, bringing you places, picking you up in fancy cars like Mercedes or BMWs, and just driving you around town, kind of courting, if you will, but to the extreme of courting. Mine definitely did that. He was a rapper, so he brought me to the studio, made me feel like I was in the limelight, made me feel special and loved and heard and seen, like any 20-something-year-old wants to feel, right? Yeah. So my lease was ending in Queens, and I decided to move in with him. He asked me to. So I did. I moved in with him, and it was normal boyfriend-girlfriend experience, went furniture shopping, did all the things that normal beginning of the relationships do. And, day after day, it got a little bit different. I failed out of college during this too, in the summer of when we were together, which was really hard on me because he took up so much of my time. I didn't really care about, anything else. That should have been a red flag to me. Now that I'm even more, I feel more comfortable with you guys to share more. But I wasn't a red flag. So he pretty much isolated me from my family, my friends. I went out with him every single night, became a thing. He got more abusive by the day. I remember one time, I don't know what I did. I think I looked at his phone or something silly like that. And he just laid it on me, and I laid on the bed, and I didn't really understand it. And I just forgave him. And it just, continued to happen over and over again. And I remember he took my pictures, and I thought it was just, for him. And they were sexy pictures. And he ended up telling me later that he used those for Backpage, which obviously is gone now, thank God.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what Backpage was?
Yeah. So Backpage was kind of like a Craigslist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But there was more about selling of women, men, sex, girlfriend, boyfriend ads. They had their own lingo. You couldn't type the actual number. You had to spell it out. So if your number for the escort, I call them escort services, what they call it professionally online, is what they use. Do you want to escort tonight? Which really means they're either being trafficked or they're doing it themselves.
Okay.
As their profession. So anyways, long story short, they always did the numbers spelt out on Backpage, and that's how you'd call, because legally you couldn't put your number on there. Just funky things. But we actually got that gone away with. I don't remember the year, but I'm so happy that bill passed. It was a mom that did that. So that's brilliant and amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah. So he kind of gave me an ultimatum. He had my own personal address book with my family members in it. My grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my best friends were all in this address book, and he used it a lot against me. If you don't do this, I'll go and tell them this. Or if you don't do this, I'll go up to Maine and kill them. Definitely used the threatened and abusive kind of situation at first in my trafficking experience. And he told me, if you don't do this, then you don't love me. You don't love me. You don't want this career for me. You don't want this life. You don't want your parents to die. I mean, that's pretty obvious situation. You obviously would pick your parents over your body. So I did it. My first night was on Backpage, and it was awful. He brought me, into places I never thought I would go. And I was sold. I was raped. I was pretty much kidnapped slowly. It was very, and I feel like every single trafficking story that I hear is it all happened so fast. Every single story I listen to, it all happened so fast. And it's true, because that's what they do. They groom you, they threaten you, they abuse you, they manipulate you, and then they go full force into it. And they are mastermind manipulators, these people. And this could be a woman or a male, any age, race, sex, anybody can be a trafficker. Mine was, like I said, a boyfriend which was a Romeo pimp. There's gorilla pimps as well, which are like the ones that would kidnap your child while they're playing outside in their car.
Okay.
Yeah, but mine was a Romeo pimp. I'm not sure how gory you guys want me to go into it, but
girl, you get to. This is your platform, and you can share whatever you want. We have no censors on this show, and we welcome everything. And anyone who's tuning in, if you're listening now and you need to take a break, Maegan may reveal some things that you may not want to hear, and that's okay. But we welcome it here. So whatever you want to share,
recorded.
Sister, it is, and it's being recorded. So whatever you want to share, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So whatever feels good and feels in alignment, we honor. Lay it on the altar, sister.
Thank you. But yeah, I just felt kidnapped at that point. I couldn't have my own money. I remember I had my student loans and I put them in an envelope, and he knew where my envelope was, and I ran out of money fast. And that's definitely another way that he persuaded me into it, as well as my address book of, well, what are you going to do now? You're alone. No one loves you. No one, like, he completely isolated me. But yeah, it was really hard during that. He scheduled my phone calls to my parents, my internet time. It would lock me in a closet for days. I'm extremely claustrophobic now because of that. I would just be legit locked in a room, in this walk-in closet that I had all my clothes in. And he'd give me a pillow and say, you have to stay here and lock the door. And I remember missing Thanksgiving, and it was the first Thanksgiving I ever met. That should have been a red flag, and that's another reason why I'm doing my Angel Warriors, because I want people to know the red flags. I'd missed it. I didn't even go to Maine for Thanksgiving, which is unheard of. And we went to his family's house, and we had to pretend that we were in love, or I'm not even sure if that was his real family, honestly, because they lie about everything. Traffickers do their manipulations and tricks, or magic hat tricks. And that night, I did something wrong. I think I texted somebody on my phone, like a man or something, and he got really jealous, and he locked me in the room. I remember it was all day Black Friday. I was in the room by myself, and I didn't have a phone or anything. He would have his friends come over and rape me, and he allowed me to join an escort service, and I actually told him I wanted to, only because I did not want to be on Backpage anymore because it wasn't safe. And I thought the only way for me to be safe was an actual professional service. So he said, okay, you can do that instead. So that to me was not a saving grace, because I'm still being raped and going through trafficking, but I was with other people. I was with other females that were being trafficked too, so it wasn't just me, it was other people, and it was almost like a weird sisterhood. We all got picked up in some kind of fancy car in a limo, and they would bring us to whatever call came on the radio or the phone, and we had a guy that was always driving us around, and we would stop. He'd allow us to go into a store and come out. So it was almost like my freedom a little bit.
I was going to say, after what you went through, it sounds like, that was a stepping stone to, maybe another way out of that whole situation. When you say that and I look back on it, that's what it looks like for me, an opportunity to start to move out of this situation in a different way. Yeah, and to me, it was just like survival mode. I didn't want to be in the projects every night, being scared. And I was branding, and there's other things that I saw when I went to the project that just didn't resonate with me. And I didn't feel safe every single time that they brought me on Backpage calls. The guys were just really aggressive and abusive and just awful, as far as the sexual relations goes. So good. I met this guy. He was a bar owner in New York City. He paid, for my sex. And he was trying to help me escape. And then he brought me somewhere in Queens, and I almost was out. And then something in me told me to text my pimp, and he came to get me. And then the agency dropped me because I escaped, and they didn't give them half of their money. I don't even remember how much it was at this point. I would give them, I think
like 20%. That's what Spirit's telling me right now, 20%. So I think I gave him 20%, and then I had to give my trafficker the rest. I didn't see a dime. So, like, this was not for myself. This was definitely for, the trafficker that was sitting at home that was using threats and everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that is crazy. You answered the question without me having to ask it. I was going to ask what would be the difference of Backpage and the escort service, and you explained that beautifully. So that is news to my ears. I would have just kind of looked at it and kind of lumped it together, but I like that differentiation, and I'm glad that Backpage got taken down. I remember living in Chattanooga, and one of my friends was a sex therapist, and sometimes she would do some advertising on Backpage, and I didn't even know what the hell it was. I was like, what is Backpage? She's like, well, it's like a Craigslist, but for sex. And I'm like, okay. And we just dropped it. I just figured everything was like her. They were all sex therapists willing. I didn't think much beyond that, beyond odd. I didn't know there was a sex Craigslist. And then it got closed down. It wasn't even a couple months later. And I messaged her. I'm like, that got closed down for trafficking. She goes, I know. She goes, there was all kinds of kids being rescued from some of those ads, and they closed it down. And I was like, holy shit. And this is scary. How long do you guys think that was up and running, Backpage? I don't remember hearing about it before 3 years ago. Do you guys have any idea? Maybe?
Yeah, I researched that part of it. I just remember being so happy when I heard that it was gone. Yeah. But I know I was, trafficked off of there for 6 months.
Okay. Oh, man.
And then what was the total time you were trafficked? What was the full time? What was the full length of time?
I believe it was around a year between the grooming and the trafficking part. So I was one of the ones that was lucky enough to get out. A lot of girls don't get out.
Yeah.
They either die or they continue.
That is. And then what was the addiction rate when amongst the girls? You said there was like a sisterhood amongst some of the trafficked individuals. Did you see a lot of substance abuse or anything like that? Yeah,
my sister got me addicted to cocaine. And I was in and out of it before it because of New York City, party scene, fashion school. Mm-hmm. I was around it, honestly. Mm-hmm. But he made it cool. He made it okay. And like all his friends did it. Come on, kind of like prodding me to do it. And then, all the girls in the escort business that I saw did it. And we all smoked cigarettes, and we all did drugs, and it was like, what was the call? It was a lingo. Oh, party wanted, meaning cocaine wanted. And there was another term for E, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember cocaine was party. And some people that wanted to buy you did not want you to have party, so they'd be like, no party girls, and that meant like no girls that do drugs.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. But it was an awful experience. I was sold for a long time, and I couldn't honestly imagine getting out. I definitely had one night that I tried to commit suicide myself, and that was one of probably the darkest moments. When I first shared my story to the public, I didn't cry through the whole thing, but that was the part, and it still gets me a little bit shaky when I talk about it, because I didn't really want anyone to know, because I'm such a happy person that I didn't want people to think that I went that far, into depression and whatnot, but I did. But he definitely made sure I didn't die that night. Now I remember it, because I couldn't remember it for so long. Like, what happened? He put his fingers on my throat so I could throw up.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that, and it's something that I think deserves to be talked about, and we've been taught throughout our society and cultures and different religions that, suicide's a sin or shameful, but I work with so many survivors of it and so many people who have been down that dark road, and there's always so much purpose to that pain, and they come out of it on a different level, and so I'm grateful that you are releasing the stigma around that a little bit and sharing that with us, and I'm grateful you're here with us.
Yeah, me too. One thing I could say is I never walked down the strip. We called it the strip. It was in Jamaica, Queens. And it was just like a road that all the prostitutes would be at, or other women that are victims of trafficking would be in there, that one street. He always threatened me with it, but I was never on the strip. So that's one thing I can say, like I never walked the strip.
And that would be a lot more dangerous?
Dangerous because of the police. I was never arrested. A lot of girls that were trafficked have been arrested multiple times, had babies by their pimps, got married to their pimps, all this like crazy stuff that I've heard, even working in Maine for the last year. So sometimes I feel guilty even like sharing my story, because I know that women have gone through 100 times worse than me in their trafficking stories. So I battle with that sometimes.
Well, that's just your ego trying to make light of your situation, which it's not light. There's varying degrees, and it's important to look at this and allow this knowledge to come forward, that it can look a lot of different ways. When people think trafficking, they think, maybe third world kids all rounded up and put on a boat or something. I don't know what they think, but they don't necessarily think in tiers like you're talking about, like romance pimp and gorilla pimp and things like this. These stories are going to bring a lot of awareness that we need to start making sense of this, and it's not just one way or another. Did either of you watch that documentary, Filthy Rich, on Netflix, the Epstein one?
Yes, it's very hard to watch, but I watched it.
I was going to ask, is that hard for you to watch, Maegan?
Yeah, it created PTSD, definitely, but it also created inspiration at the same time and motivation at the same time.
Our beautiful friend Leslie Lyon just said something about triggers being an opportunity to create transformation or something, didn't she, Jennie?
Probably. Sounds like something she said, and sounds like something I recently shared on Facebook.
Yeah, and what you just said, Maegan, it kind of invited me to think about that, because, it's not easy. And when we see things or hear things, it will bring up trauma from our past often. But there can be purpose to that, and there can be inspiration at the same time. And so many people think it's got to be one way or another. They shut down the inspiring part of themselves while they're maybe getting a little triggered. And I'm really just grateful that you talked about that experience, because that's a raw and vulnerable experience that we humans have. And it can often lead to inspiring and good things because of what we're feeling at that time.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of prompted me to bring more movement in Maine, honestly. And it was probably like a month or two before the hot topic started to arise in my community in Maine, which I'm so grateful that it's finally in the limelight, honestly. Because no one really understood it. Yeah.
And that's just it, too. Each of us have our own paths. We're all our own sovereign beings. And, you may not have been through the most extreme, but you went through an experience as well. And just because it wasn't as extreme as someone else doesn't mean it wasn't just as important. And by you sharing your story, not only does it help to, for you and your healing process, but it also gives inspiration and permission to others to tell their stories and their experiences. The problem with sex in general is that it's almost every human on our planet has some form of shame associated with it because of what we've all been taught. And I think part of this problem has gotten so out of control or out of hand because we are afraid to talk about it. So you just showing up and sharing this is moving mountains, and we thank you.
You're welcome. I know a lot of people don't even like me to say sex trafficking. I'm like, sex. I don't care.
Yeah, what does Jennie have to say about that?
We need to normalize all these words that everyone's people don't even like to hear the word sex, let alone look at the grotesque energy keeping pedophilia in place. We need to open our eyes and stop getting all caught up on these words. It's an incredible time, and I'm glad that there's an uprising in this space. And I know Megan's been beating this drum for a long time, and I'm glad she's getting the wind of the universe behind her with this, and it has inspired so much movement. And just today, I couldn't get on Facebook without seeing Save the Children. And there is big movement around that. Mandee's starting a sexual awareness show. Poor Magic was born. And then we have another gal who's a psychic who started a psychic awareness for sex trafficking. She's going to do similar stuff that Poor Magic's going to be doing as far as getting some remote viewers, some psychics, to see if we can pinpoint some of this abuse happening. And I'm imagining it will take a little while because the remote viewers we're working with are new at it, and they are extremely good, but it takes a minute to develop the skill. But what it is basically a psychic going into a trance-like state. By the way, the CIA has a big training program around it, and it's been thrown around the military a lot, but it's also, of course, a psychic skill. There's a funny movie made on it years ago called Men Who Stare at Goats. It's about the government teaching remote viewing, but what it is, it's a very serious psychic skill where the psychic will go into a trance and pick up any details that they can where there are groups of people being held against their will, maybe singular people. We don't know exactly how it'll all go out, but it's going to be basically psychics getting some impressions on locations, and we figure it out and send boots on the ground people into that space. This is probably about 2 years out, but you got to start somewhere. And we had people actually be guided by spirit to reach out to us and say, is there something I can do? I've been told directly to communicate with you. And they're also very psychic. And they're beginning into the beginners in the remote viewing space. So we have a lot of people coming forward with a lot of these skills that are going to help us collaborate with all the knowledge that we're moving around and the awareness that's being brought to this. So it is a hot topic as it needs to be. I'm just going to keep blowing wind on it so it doesn't go out. I want to keep this bonfire going because I'd prefer to put, pedophiles on a stake than innocent children. I don't want anyone on a stake, per se, but I really don't care about families who are hiding their pedophile family members. I don't care about their egos. I don't care about ruining their kids' life as far as work in the community. I don't care about any of that. I want to bring it to the table so we can look at it and heal it, because the pedophiles are sick individuals, and there's a lot of reasons they're saying this could be this way. Some of it probably abuse in their own right. Some of it's psychological malfunction. Some of it's brain dysfunction. So meaning they did a research piece on this guy who had brain damage later in his life, had pedophilia desires, did not act on them, but had the desires and the urges. And he went in to get checked out, probably because he had got hit on the head. And they're like, well, you've got this part of your brain damaged. You know what? It wasn't that. I'm so sorry. That was a different story. But what had happened was a guy had cancer, and the tumor was pushing out a certain part of his brain. They removed the tumor. The pedophile desires went away. The tumor started to grow back, because that's often what happens with tumors. And the pedophile desires came back. So we have actual physical brain issues that could be happening with these people, whether it be brain damage or discord in the dysfunction in the brain, actual physical shape of it or something. And then also the psychological part, so like the chemicals inside of us, as well as there's all this abuse holding it in place. So we need to get to the bottom of that so we can lighten our pedophile existence and start to heal that at the roots, because no one wants their kid to be a freaking pedophile, but they also need to start looking at it so we can heal why the kid is a pedophile, or at least get a handle on it and start to heal it. It's something that absolutely is not allowing us to ignore it anymore. And I'm glad, and Maegan, I'm glad you've been beating that drum all these years, and then we'll continue moving and being a band leader, beating the drum, and we'll follow suit, marching along here and healing this space. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's time. It's time to do it. I've been called to tell my story for a couple of years. Honestly, ever since I started working with Mandee, and she kind of helped me open my own thoughts and processes and kind of dive deeper into loving myself and really sharing my story. And I didn't feel comfortable until I moved home to Maine, and it's been like a year and a half, and I haven't stopped since I moved back. I celebrated my birthday, telling my story, if that tells you anything about how much I really want to shed light on this topic.
And with any luck, we work on this a lifetime, and we'll leave the planet in a better place than when we arrived in it. And Maegan, I'm curious, just because you've had the exposure and been exposed, so to speak, I guess we'll call it. Do you think that, and this is just a serial question, it's really no wrong or right answer, do you think, checking the energy and have been in the energy and been able to, being an empath and a sensitive yourself, intuitive as all get out, do you think that an incredible amount of pedophilia exists in our government in Hollywood, or a moderate amount? And I know that's such a strange question because you don't tote yourself as a psychic, but you've been in that energy.
I'm really working on her intuition lately. She's been dropping some things. I'm like, you go, girl. So I would ask her that.
I know she's very intuitive. Yes, and I didn't want to put her on the spot because it's not her go-to exactly in every second of the day. But yes, I would appreciate maybe if you'd shed a little light, if you can see anything or if you feel anything.
Well, our country was built on the sex trade and slavery, so we've been in that business, if you want to call it a business. Corrupt business for a long time, like since the U.S. was born, literally. So yes, I believe that there's probably, I want to say, a good 70% of bad people, pedophiles, corrupt. Yeah, most of them are, especially in higher positions. I feel like they have to give themselves away to the devil in order to do that. That's my own personal opinion, but. Yeah, I do believe that, 100%.
Well, the reason I asked you that is
because me quite a bit. I was lucky enough to see. Go, sister, go.
Sorry, Mandee. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I just had a client the other day, and she's a beautiful psychic soul, and she had been molested for about, she said it was about 5 years, from about the age 6 to about, I think she said 12 or something like this. And she is a teacher, and she says that she's quite certain she has put together some sort of blueprint of pedophiles and how they walk around kids and how they act around kids. And I about passed out because not only was she telling me this, it was literally 2 hours before that someone walked forward and said, "Hey, I've been told by spirit to get a hold of you. What's up? What are we doing?" I'm like, "What do you do?" They're like, "I'm a remote viewer study." And I'm like, "Here we go." It felt like it was just par for the course, and the universe was saying, there's blueprints, there's ways to go at this from a spiritual, energetic, and psychological way. And I'm like, oh my God. So we could be also even getting just incredible insight from incredibly sensitive people like Maegan and my client, bringing forward some pieces of information that we can start to see pieces be put together, or some hints or clues that we can start to see. And of course, not throw the book at them if they have these blueprints, but take a closer look, and protect these kids. And we can do it by, again, studying pedophiles and having sensitive individuals come forward and be like, "I'm getting a feeling. This is often what happens." Because this woman works in a school. So she's around male teachers, and she says most of them are good, but she said one of them, this is how she knew she could do it. He walked too close to the kid, she said. She goes, normally that's not a good enough reason to throw a book at someone, right? And she didn't throw any books, but she was starting to kind of accuse him in her head. And she goes, that's not a good enough reason. It was this reason, and then this reason, and this reason. I can't remember the exact details, but it was something how he was around certain children and not around others. So he acted one way around some kids and not the others, so showing attraction even, on a very light level. And then also having some kids stay after school, always girls coming, So she just, she said it didn't even have to get to that extreme. I only had to see like a couple of those key patterns, and I was on it. And she said she brought it to the table, and I think he either walked or got let go or something. And I can't remember all the details of what happened with that information exactly, but she said she was able to get confirmation that indeed he was a pedophile. So she goes, I have to be in proximity, but I can give everyone kind of a breakdown of what I'm seeing. Now, again, this isn't going to be a science or anything, but it's something. It's something to start to be like, they're everywhere. We have to be able to see the patterns. If there's so many of them, it's like the Catholic priests, we started to put things together. The stories came out, and then there was that movie that came out. It was brilliant. It was called Spotlight. It was about the Washington Post, basically bringing the Catholic priests to the paper and bringing their wrongs to the paper, and all the stories started coming out, and it got brought with information and research that I think it was like 2% of priests are pedophiles, and everyone's like, okay, is that big enough number? And they were like, there's 3,000 priests in the Boston area or something like that. And they did the numbers, and there was something like, I can't remember all the numbers, but it was something like 90 pedophiles. They're like, no, that is not acceptable to have 90 pedophiles in the Catholic Church alone. Mm-hmm. Those numbers are too big. That's just, any number's too big, let alone that number. So this group, these journalists, and I think it was the 2000s, 2001, 2, 3, something like this. They did their work. They put their neck on the line, these Washington Post journalists, and they kept getting story after story of abused kids, mostly boys, coming forward around the East Coast there. And they brought it to light, and it got a lot of attention, and it got kind of swept under the rug, and here we are in 2020, and it got brought back. I think last year is when that Catholic stuff came back to the table, and everyone's just like, all right, let's take a closer look. So you got 14 freaking years later, after major exposure in the Catholic Church in the East Coast and how they moved these pedophiles around and did not persecute them, did not put them in any sort of program to rehabilitate them, simply kept moving them around from, I don't know, I think they call it parish to parish. Mm-hmm. And I was just blown away. So that was brought to the table in an explosive way, 2003, and it just got brought back up last year, where I think it's getting more movement. But there's 14 years where people are just sweeping it under the rug, sweeping it under the rug. And I was like, man, how much more exposure do we need before we get the help that we have to get this taken care of? And I'm feeling that wave coming in finally.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
It broke down the confines, that rocked everyone, everyone finding out about the church. It confirmed a lot for a lot of people, but it helped us to at least say, okay, now everything's not the way it seems, and maybe we need to look in some different places and see what's happening. I was going to say earlier, I feel like what Maegan was saying about the 70% of, those in control, I call it being on the naughty list, being on the naughty list right now. Because I got to be a fly on the wall as a bartender in upstate New York, in Albany, New York, after all of the assemblymen and Congress and whatnot would get out of session when they were up there. They all had apartments close to like the bar that I worked at, and they would come there, and the things I would see and hear give me so much validity to what we are hearing being, I guess, accused of at this time.
What did you hear? Like, what kinds of things?
Just like you would hear things like I heard that word Backpage many, many times. People would literally say code words of pedophilia if you look into all that stuff, and whether, people want to say whether Pizzagate's true or not. I don't know how many of them would be looking for late night pizza. They wouldn't ask me for a menu. They wouldn't be Googling on their phone. They'd be talking to their friend about it. Randomly like closing out tabs. All of a sudden something's there. Strange car comes up, picks them up, off they go. Could have been, their assistant, I don't know. But either way, just some really strange things. And then the way they would talk about it. And then they were just, the way they would openly just talk about sex and womanizing, and like, even like some of the, like, it was mostly men there, I have to say. There were a few women that would come sometimes with them, but they'd often get uncomfortable and leave pretty quickly. And so there was like a lot of men that I got to see, but just weird things would happen like that. And I just hear them talking about stuff that didn't feel right. And I was highly intuitive at the time, but didn't know it, like so many of us. I had been very intuitive as a child. It went away because of traumas and dramas, and it had been coming back at that time, and I couldn't understand what it was that was resonating through me. But this is what I trust in the people, that we're all going to resonate with the truth as it comes available, because people remember certain things. I was talking to a girlfriend the other day about all the possibilities. She goes, I just couldn't help it, but I was having this flashback of thinking of this show I watched on MTV when I was like in high school, and the girl kept talking about this face lotion and how amazing it was because it had the foreskin of babies in it. And she's like, and it just can't shake me right now. And I'm like, well, that's a big thing that goes into this whole trafficking supposedly is using all kinds of different organs and things for greed-based purposes in all kinds of ways, and I wouldn't be surprised if we find out about that. So people are just remembering strange things along their soul path that's going to help them to be intuitive and to know and understand the truth from within.
Yeah, I think that I definitely had something happen to me with my mom's boyfriend at a young age, and I don't know what it is. And I've worked with Jennie on it and Mandee on it just to remember, and but I was burnt by him, and I remember a few different abusive things that he did, like he put me outside in the chair. But I think it was like in the middle of winter. He made me watch my cartoons, and I don't know if he did it for like you deserve this to go outside kind of thing, or trying to be a pedophile. I have no idea, but I still get this like petty vibes from that one boyfriend my mom had, and I remember him vividly in those memories. It's just really strange. But.
You know, and that's the thing, is like trauma does get suppressed, and when it's time or we're in a safe place for us to be able to see it or look at it or heal it, it might come up. You know, sometimes we'll watch something like the Epstein things and it'll trigger something in us. So, you know, that process is going to come up for you as it does, and for our listeners out there as well. You know, so many people want to heal their trauma and their PTSD, and sometimes it's just not in the highest good to remember things at that time, and sometimes Spirit will let you remember it or see it or heal it when it's in a safer space or it's the more divine time for it. Because I know a lot of people can pressure themselves around that. So I just want to shoot that out there for the listeners.
Yeah, I definitely feel pressure, especially like when I'm writing my book. Like I don't remember, because I have PTSD pretty bad, and I don't remember everything. I'm like, I just want to remember. Why can't I remember? And the brain does this really cool thing where it, you know, protects you. But I don't want to be protected anymore. I just want to know all the details, every single thing, so I can educate and write my book. It's just not happening.
We'll come up with some affirmations for that. It's the Lionsgate portal too, so we can manifest what we want right now. So that's what you're calling in. I'm sure your angels will line it up, sister.
Always do.
Jennie, did you have anything you wanted to talk about right now? Because I do have another question for Maegan.
I just have an update. It appears Secret Service has shot a man in the upper part of the body outside of the White House. That was, I saw that kind of come out earlier, and I got more information just now uploaded just so everyone can know that there's chaos everywhere. Let's send energy to the White House. Let's send energy to the chaotic space. But I want you to ask Maegan some more questions. I just want to do a little update there.
Oh, interesting. I got some chills when you talked about that. That definitely...
Wonder if someone was trying to kill Trump.
Well, there's been... This week in the Q community and a lot of the other communities, everyone's been saying, be prepared. Trump may be assassinated this week.
Wow.
So I've heard that.
Interesting.
Some Simpsons references and replays a lot.
Mm-hmm. So I love astrology. I love it so much, but I just don't study it because I study 9,000 other things in this lifetime. But certain people who do study it to get my information from, and one of the gals who does a show on our network here, Heart Over Ego Radio, her name's Lydia. Her and her friend Rachel, business partner Rachel, they do a show. I'm pretty sure they called it Evolve. We'll have to get all the details on their good stuff and talk about it a little bit. But she was talking about this, as well as Sybil Starr, another astrologer on my other podcast network, Third Eye Political Radio. We do Political Star Talk, and Sybil and Lydia are extremely good, and they were talking about how there's something conjunct or something in the sky is lining up every 20 years. It's lining up this year for either a assassination or for the president to die in office. And I'm like, we're dealing with 80-year-old men here almost, so it could be either or. So apparently 20 years ago, there was either an attempted assassination or a president died, and then 20 years before that, and then 20 years before that. I'm sure if we went back and did the math, we'd figure it out, because these astrologists, they kind of know how to back up their stuff, and they usually don't say stuff unless it's on cue. But I was like, oh my God. So apparently during the next inauguration, which I don't know when that is, maybe January or something. Apparently that's when all the stars line up, or however that goes, that there will either be an assassination or the standing president will die. So that could, that leaves Trump and Biden right there, basically. And so this will be interesting if it lines up like that, as well as what are the Q people saying? They're saying someone's going to try to assassinate Trump this week.
Yeah, potentially, but for the QAnon followers to not believe it. And supposedly he's in Jersey for 17 days right now. And that, they keep saying there might be an assassination attempt this week. So, but I guess I just Googled it too, and it looks like it was during the briefing. And so I guess it was outside of the White House and then interrupted the briefing, and it looked like they were bringing Trump back. So I don't think it was close to him at this time. But that energy is in the air, according to all the sources.
Ellen Red had posted something. She said she got the EBGBs, and she was watching Trump do his press conference, and 2 minutes in, he got escorted out. And I think that a lot of us are going to have post-traumatic stress disorder, because if you were around for 9/11, that's exactly what happened when they pulled Bush out of the the second grade class that he was reading to, or whatever that was. So they came and kind of pulled him out in a meeting, and it was being televised. So I think a little post-traumatic stress disorder on that end. And she said she's got the EBGBs, and she's very psychic. So I was like, interesting. So they must have had to pull him out of the conference and kind of get him in a more protected area or something like that. Interesting. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out more information on the person. They could have not been trying to kill Trump. They could have just been, kind of out of their mind in a different way, and been playing cops and robbers on the lawn. I don't know. It could be a lot of different things. So I guess we'll see. So Mandee, just to get this straight, because I don't follow the Q people, you're saying that the Q people are being told not to believe that Trump's going to get assassinated this week. Is that correct?
Yes, from what I can gather.
Interesting.
I'm in everything. I follow everybody and everything. I love it, and I'm always interested in finding things that resonate as truth within each kind of group. And so, but a big warning that they're all talking about this week is that, potentially. So that's the scuttlebutt in the Q community. We'll see though. So I guess we'll just send it all, lots of energy right now, and hold the space for the trauma and, and being afraid of anything that's going on right now, because we've been there, and we've had many parallel lifetimes where we've seen many people in office, assassinated. And certainly a lot of the revolutionaries that are back from the 60s, saw it with JFK. So.
Well, Beirut is totally off the charts right now. And let me just, if we're going to talk politics for one more minute, I'll give this piece of information. So Beirut had some poorly, from what I gather, stored chemicals, and they exploded, killed a large number of people. Apparently they don't have very many regulations on that kind of stuff. Well, this is what's happening, y'all. They took to the streets and protesting like crazy, and basically tore down their government and is putting up a new one. And I'm like, take no America. People do this when there's large problematic situations that could have been avoided, i.e. the handling of COVID as well as this chemical explosion in Beirut. They go ahead and persecute or prosecute, however you want to look at it, the leaders that are incompetent and demand new leadership. I'm like, that can happen? That
people
oh my
can
God.
do it. Unfortunately, it often takes a tragedy or trauma or something extreme. But man, when humans unite, and especially the people want to take over, we can. We don't think that. We don't know that. We don't believe in ourselves and have that confidence that we can. But we can, especially if we all stand together from the heart and from this heart energy and from following our intuitions. Every single person knows that there's something going on with pedophilia. Every mother and father know that it's not to let their kids out in most places or to let them, not be watched. And they can trust that intuition. And when we all start following that, I see a beautiful revolution on our hands. And it doesn't have to be a shitty one either.
Be a beautiful one. I believe in that too. I feel like we need to be united, especially right now, in every aspect of the words. That could be with Black Lives Matter movement, that could be with pedophilia, that could be with sex trafficking or human trafficking. But it's time that we all act like I'm a Christian, and it's all time that we act like God wanted us, to be. Like He wanted us to love everyone and to respect everyone and to be there to treat everyone like their neighbor, and it's time that we do that.
And once we get a handle on that, we can go ahead and go after the slavery that we call domestic slavery, where we buy third, second, I don't know what you would call it, but anyone that is considered second-class citizen, so anyone from maybe a third-world country, this is ridiculous that I have to even get this out of my mouth, but just to describe it, people who buy other people and keep them as slaves and pay them next to nothing to do all their bidding and cleaning and lawn and care and all this stuff, watch their children, raise their children. So let's get a handle on these, this human sex trafficking, and then let's go after the domestic traffics. We'll get it all.
It's time. And I believe that it's going to happen.
I feel like these trends aren't going to lay down I'm still seeing posts saying Epstein didn't kill himself. People are not letting it go. Is it the hot and fiery conversation right this second? No, but it's meaning Epstein. But now the trafficking thing is in the limelight again, and I think that it's going to stay there until we get some understanding around it. And it may take us kicking that can down the road for a little while to really get some answers, and I know why. For example, I know why traffickers get 6 years in jail and people caught with a bag of weed get 4. I know why. It's because the people running the fucking courthouses are goddamn pedophiles, and so we have it down into the roots. Our beautiful Megan Ray was telling us, she's, reading the energy and looks about 70% toxic. And I'm going to go ahead and back her up on that, reading energy for a living. So what we have are the roots really bad, and the systems in place that are supposed to protect us are not protecting us. They're protecting the pedophiles. So why does a fucking human goddamn trafficker get 6 years in jail and my buddy will spend 4 for selling a bag of weed?
Exactly.
Maybe not so much anymore with the weed thing, but it's just incredible. And this is the answer is because they make money off persecuting weed, and they want to keep persecuting you. They don't want to make the fines too steep for traffickers, because how are all the congressmen going to get their little people to abuse? It makes me sick and disgusted when I see these numbers coming out of people who, remember that Brock guy who raped the girl behind the dumpster?
Oh, yeah.
I think he got house arrest or some shit like that.
I don't remember all this. About it for 20 minutes of action.
Yeah. See,
this is all of these people do create all of these rules and all of these laws so that they can enable one another and protect one another.
Yeah. It's called cronyism, and I will burn shit to the ground before I let it keep going at the rate that it's going. It's a personal vendetta every time I incarnate to go to this cronyism of disgusting hate and greed and pedophilia and dark magic and alchemize the fuck out of it. So it's what we're doing. That's why we call ourselves the Alchemy Sisters.
Amen, sister. Well, we only have about 8 minutes left, and I thought it'd be nice to maybe we'll end on a little positive note. Megan's story ends well, because clearly she's here with us right now, and came kind of full circle in a magical and divine way, and I was hoping you could maybe share that with us a little bit, sister.
Yeah, so I was able, obviously, to get out the night that I was able to get out, I should say. It was pretty bad the night before. I was beaten almost to death. I blacked out. I honestly don't remember a lot. I literally can't touch my ribs to the left side to this day. Like, if Bella, who's my daughter, if she's like playing around and kicking me, I'm like, no, Bella, you can't touch my ribs. Like, it still hurts, even now. And that could be energetically, and that could also be like because it actually hurts. But anyways, I was able to leave that next day. I was almost beaten to death. He had made me clean up my own blood. It was the worst experience I have ever gone through with him. I had like gun to my head, everything possible. That next night, he was going to the studio because he's a rapper. And I felt the urge in me, and that could be from God, that could be from spirit, that could be from my angels. It was really heavy. And it was like, it's time to go. It literally said that to me. It's time to go. And I had $40 hidden in a broken BlackBerry in my closet. And I pretended I was walking my dog Presley and I literally was running. I turned the corner after I knew that he wasn't surrounding me or his friends weren't watching me. So I do feel like he had people watching me at all times. But I was able to run to a store, and that store is T-Mobile, and they allowed me to, stay in the back, call my parents, call the cops, and, go to the hospital and whatnot. Long story short, I work for T-Mobile today, which is wild. I failed out of college with my trafficker, and they're now paying for me to go to college for free. The same company that saved me, I work for. It's just like a huge loop, huge, full circle there. And the cops, that's whole nother podcast. That's my daughter. The cops are actually taking me back to my trafficker, and I'm trying to create a bill to help that and educate the police officers and whatnot in these kind of situations. But I had exactly $40 on me, I should say. It cost exactly $40 to get to my friend's house, and she ended up calling the right police officer that was meant for me and the ambulance, and my dad came down from Maine and brought me back home. Yeah.
It is a happy story. Well, thank you, Maegan. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you guys so much for giving me a platform to, educate and share my story. I can't wait for the future.
Can you share with our listeners how they can follow you or work with you or reach out to you if they're interested?
Yeah, of course. I have an Instagram account right now. I'm currently building my site, but as soon as it's up, it will be updated on my Instagram. It's going to be at Angel Warrior May, M-A-E.
Excellent. Wonderful. And everybody, this is the Alchemy Sisters. We're here most Mondays. We've got about 3 episodes before season 3 ends, so you're going to want to catch the last 3 people we have on for season 3. We have Leela, who's also with us at Heart Over Ego Radio. And we have, who else do we have? I can't remember off the top of my head. We have a couple more people that are incredible, and you're going to absolutely love them. And then we will be taking a hiatus, and we'll be announcing season 4 in the future. So definitely check out our archived episodes, which are available on any major podcast app. Just simply go to Heart Over Ego Radio. Simply search Heart Over Ego Radio, and you will have all of us. We have shows most days of the week. A lot of them are live. Some of them are uploaded. And again, we have all of our archived shows, so you can go back and listen and at your leisure and tell your friends if the information you think would resonate with them, as well as you can check out our sister station, Third Eye Political Radio. And pretty soon we'll be uploading Horror Magic on Heart Over Ego Radio, which is the network that we're talking on right now. So keep your eyes open. We have all kinds of new stuff adding, and we're always growing, and we appreciate you all. And Mandee, can you think of anything else?
Just that, we talked about a lot of really heavy things tonight, and part of being the Alchemy Sisters here on season 3, we know a lot of healers and a lot of resources, and if there's anything coming up in you, anything you need support with, please reach out to us. You can find us on heartoverego@gmail.com, Heart Over Ego Radio on Facebook, the Alchemy Sisters on Facebook, Horror Magic on Facebook. We're kind of, with the work that we do, we tend to be a safe place for people to be seen and to be heard and met with non-judgment. And we're happy to help you along your way if there's anything that you need for all of the things that are coming up right now. Because I don't know, I'm sure you'd agree with me, Jennie. I don't think one human is spared in the summer of 2020 from any triggers.
No one is exempt, and everyone's healing, which makes it a good year, even though it's quite heavy. And all of those pages, Heart Over Ego Radio, the Alchemy Sisters, and Horror Magic are all also on Instagram. So if you like to play ball over there, we do have pages over there. I think we're all a little bit more active because of the private communities that we can have over on Facebook. But either way, reach out. We have community support. We have some of the best healers of every shade of color and shape you could imagine, and we are here to help. And if you don't have the finances, check us out, Heart Over Ego Radio. We give a lot of our information for free there. Most of the stuff I cover in sessions is available in my channelings in most of our shows. So reach out and get that free support and connect with us on Facebook and our communities. We have a Heart Over Ego radio community as well as a Team Warrior community. So reach out. Again, Maegan, it was a pleasure. We'll have to have you back in season 4 and see what kind of abundance has come in for you. And until next time, Mandee, do you have anything else?
That's it. I love you all. Have a beautiful night.
Thank
Have
you,
a
guys.
lovely night.
Bye-bye.